that brings you to the end of the packet. It's pretty thin because the rest is just going to be a Canvas project. All right. Well, without more wasting time, let's go ahead and get started on what we're doing. Remember, we are combining like terms. We're reviewing combining like terms. So again, in order to combine like terms, remember, we can only combine like terms if they have the same variable and exponent. So if you are looking at these directions, you're going to draw lines in front of each plus or minus sign to separate the terms. You're going to code each group of like symbols by using different color highlighters or symbols, like a square or a circle, and I'll show you. Then we're going to put like terms together and simplify each group and then put it back together. So if you kind of struggle with this concept, this is a great way to make this go nice, clean, neat, organized. If you guys already know how to do this, you do not have to follow these steps. These steps are just in case you kind of struggle on what to combine. So let me go ahead and demonstrate the steps here. So remember, it says we're going to draw a line in front of any plus or minus sign. And what this does, guys, is it just separates the terms. That's all that happens there. And after we do that, we kind of code stuff according to like terms. And it's always about the variable and the exponent. So right here, that -4 has an a squared. So I'm looking through all of these terms. There's another a squared. So I'm going to circle it with my same exact color. Notice I did not circle the a's because they didn't have an exponent, only the ones with the exponent of a 2. All right, so the next thing that I see in this expression is a -2, no numbers at all. So I'm going to circle this in a different color, look for other plain numbers. There's a plain number right here. And notice I am circling the plus or the minus in front of it. I got one more here, just a +1, so I'm going to circle that. And then the next thing that I see are just A's, and that's everything that's left over. So I could change my shape just to kind of make it stand out a little more. So I'm drawing a box around all of the A's. And now I'm going to put each group of like terms together. So the first group that I circled were the a squared. So that's going to be a -4a squared plus 6a squared. The next thing that happens are the -2's, but I really just want to go ahead and do all of my variables at the same time. So now I'm going to look at the regular a's. So this is +3a minus 5a plus a, and then a minus a down there. Notice how it's all color coded. And then at the very last, we're going to put what I circled that didn't have a variable at all. So this is going to be a -2, a -12, and a +1. All right. So what we're going to do now is we're just going to combine according to the groups that I have formed. And remember, order of operations matters. We're just going to work this like we read a sentence from left to right. So guys, and remember, you only combine the numbers in the front. So a -4a squared and a +6a squared. Remember, 4 of these negatives are going to cancel out 4 of those positives, and you're going to have 2 positives left. So this is 2a squared. And if it was a negative, I would put a leading negative in front, but since it's a positive, I'm not putting anything. Okay, over here, a +3 and a -5 combine to make a -2. A -2 and a +1 is a -1. A -1 and one more negative is going to be -2. So since it's -2, I'm going to write -2 And then don't forget the letter that comes with it. Last but not least, a -2 and a -12 is a -14. A -14 with one positive is a -13. And that's it, guys. So that's a really simple, basic way to combine like terms, and y'all don't have to follow all of these steps. If you've got a shorter method, I want you to use that method. That would be awesome. Okay, let's turn the page here and take a look at some key vocab. And you guys should know this because I touched on this at the very beginning of the year. So for this stuff, let's remember that a blank is a letter used to represent one or more numbers. That's a variable. And you guys should know that. A blank is a part of an expression that is added to or subtracted from another part. This is called a term. Parts are like terms. Let's look at the next one. A blank is a number part of a term with a variable part. So a blank is a number part of a term with a variable part. That is a coefficient. A blank is a term with a number part but no variable. That is a constant term, guys. Constant term. And then the blank are terms that have the same variable parts. The variable and the exponent must be the same for both terms. Very important. So I know that this is like terms. That's like the key word for this unit. All right, so let's take a look and see if we can combine this stuff, if they're like terms or not. So on this first example, I know that these are certainly alike, and I know they are alike because they have the same variable part. So I'm going to put a true there. These right here, these are also alike because they have the same variable part. So let's put true. The next one, they both have m squareds. So again, these are alike because they have the same variable part. And guys, remember, if they don't have a number, these are just constants. They're still alike. Of course, we know that. That's going to be a 2. So they are both constants. And then here, the 5x and the 2, they are not, of course. They're not alike because they don't have the same variable part. Same with 4x and 3y. These are not alike, and I know they're not alike because they don't have the same variable. So even the bottom one, guys, even though they both have x, if one has an exponent and the other one doesn't, they're not alike. The variable doesn't have the same exponent. All right, let's just make sure we're good to go. We're going to do a couple of examples, and then that's going to be it for our notes. We're over halfway done, guys. All right, so identify the parts of an expression. Remember, you have terms, like terms, coefficients, and constants. The weird one, remember, is a coefficient, and that just stands for a number in front of a variable. Also, remember that terms are always separated by a plus or minus. Okay, so here I have 2 things separated, which means there's 1, 2, 3 terms here. So the amount of terms are 3. I have 2 like terms because they have the same variable part. I have 1 coefficient. The only coefficient I have is 2 because that's the only number in front of that x. If you look at the first term, it appears that there's not a coefficient, but there is. That coefficient is a -1. So don't forget, even though the number is not written, it's understood to be a 1, but this is -1 because it has a leading negative sign. Constant term, it looks like the only constant I have is an 8. So you're only going to have one answer on that blank. Let's go ahead and take a look at number 2. Number 2 is a lot of terms. 1, 2, 3, 4. They're all separated by a plus or minus. I have 2 sets of like terms. I have 2x and I have 8x. And then I have my constants of a -5 and a -3. So again, I have 2 coefficients right here. The coefficients are just the 2 and the 8, because that's what's in front of the letter x. And then my constants are right here. It's that second set that I listed of like terms. So just a -5 and a -3. So that's identifying all the parts of an expression. Let's go ahead and take a look at just a couple of examples so you guys will be good to go tomorrow when you take your minor grade activity, when you participate in that. So of course, I'm not going to do all of these, but I do want to do letter A, letter H, and letter E. So we're going to do a couple of these, and then we're going to wrap up our notes for the day. So example 2, simplify each expression by combining like terms. So remember our first example, if I want to identify all of my like terms, I can use the same color, and you have to circle the plus or the minus that's in front, because that's part of the term. And then of course, just simplify. Guys, remember your variables come first. So a positive 8a and take away 4 a's, that's going to leave you with positive 4a. And then a -6 with 2 more negatives is a -8. That's how we're going to do that. All right, let's go down to H. The reason why I wanted to talk about H is you've got to deal with the negative. So you got to distribute that negative, and you distribute it to inside the parentheses, and you distributed the number of terms inside parentheses. We only have one term here, so that negative gets distributed one time. So remember, a negative times a negative is a positive. So here's what we're really combining. We're really combining an 8p, and then that is actually a q, so -3q. I'm going to grab my same color pen as the 8p, because that 4p has a same variable part, and that's not a 4p, that's a -4p. So even the minus sign is in the same color. And then plus 6a, or 6q, that's a q. So I'm going to combine my like terms. So y'all, this is going to be a positive 4p plus 3q. So that's going to cancel out 4 of those positives there. So we're going to have 4 positives left over. So 4p plus 3q. And that expression has been simplified. I'm just going to box in my answer here. I'm also going to box in my previous answer up here. Let me do that. Okay. All right, let's take a look at the very last one we're going to do for today, which is letter E. So for letter E, I don't have to distribute anything because there's nothing in parentheses. So that's a dead giveaway. So I'm just going to start combining like terms. So this positive 7p cubed is going to go with that negative 10p cubed. Circle the negative in front. And then this negative q squared is going to be circled in purple for me. And it's going to go with the other like term of positive 5q squared. So I'm actually going to put these p cubes first because they have the higher exponent. So a positive 7 and a negative 10 is going to combine to a negative 3. We're going to have 3 negative p cubes left over. So we're going to write minus 3p cubed. And then guys, remember, this is understood to be a single one right here. So that's like a -1 and a +5. So a -1 and a +5 is going to turn into just a +4.